Rivers of Nihil, the work. This is the fourth, I believe, studio album from this tech death and progressive death metal band. That seems like they're probably transitioning out of the more extreme, or at least out of death metal, possibly, given what's going on here, because they're explored. Now, I wound up having listened to they've gained a lot of track. They've had 3 albums beforehand. I do not know too much on their first 2, but I have indeed listened to the band's big breakthrough album, Where Owls Know My Name. I didn't get a chance to listen to it then. I heard the hype, but I just wasn't sure on it at the time of said release. But this album does still deal in the thing is, they started introducing saxophones and became more famous for having done so, to the point where even some people started throwing that out around when it came to the recent At the Gates album, which sort of caught my attention a little bit. But yes, they do get a little jazzy, and it seems with this record they do become explorative of some other influences that they've had over the years that they didn't show as much in the recent one, outside of this, of just being a tech death record with jazz fusion-y style saxophones. A very metallic jazz fusion, if you will. Or death metal jazz fusion, as most people were considering that album to be. And I don't blame them, and it's not a bad... I get the hype of the record, having listened to it prior to, as I prep up, going into this record. Maybe it might have been a mistake, but I'm not actually sure. Because now, but if not for that, I wouldn't have been able to understand this project here a little bit. And yeah, I genuinely do like this record. Though but I wouldn't go as far. It does start off with this softer moment of an opener, which is what the Tower technically is. And then into Dreaming Black Clockwork, where the more heavier stuff, and they do have this weird thing that ends, of how they end this record, that's jarring a bit for me, because in that similar way I feel about, in a way I do it, that I wind up having felt about Slaughter the Soul, having done a discography run for that, in preparation for that album. But I digress. Overall, I enjoyed this album. I'm sorry, you're going to deal with this again, for those who've seen the other review. But anyways, this album. And then Wait is where things start to switch things up a little bit from the normal. Plus, they do seem to not rely nearly as much. It's part of it, but you don't hear it nearly as much, the saxophones, as part of it, in the way that you kind of did more forward in the mix. In fact, a lot of the more softer aspects of this record, or at least more dynamic moments, are weirdly more buried in the mix, as opposed to the more louder moments. So, which I did notice that a little bit in When Owls Know My Name, Where Owls Know My Name, but just a little bit, but it wasn't so much in a way that but I felt like that one was a better mix. This album, the intention of it seems to be thematically that it's involving some individual who's basically become such of a workaholic that he's become a slave to, in and of itself, to where it may as well be a slave to the labor. That it's become the only thing that he can do, because to make his life, to even work for a living, having to where, or I guess also commentary in the sense that now how our society, or at least at this point, despite the pandemic, has kind of become to the point where now, even more so now, even post-pandemic, it's become a bit more where everyone has to become more of a workaholic just to be able to make ends meet. And it seems this character deals with these ins and outs on these issues, to the point where it does seem to have apparently consumed his life and messed with him, I guess, mentally, to the point where, or at least to the extent to where when he even thinks of even getting to have a break, those people that work with him that are dealing with the same shit wind up making him think bad about it, I guess. Or at least that's what I'm getting from these listens that I've had for this album. It could be a misinterpretation, and to the band of Rivers of Nile, if I misinterpreted that, I am sorry. Same, and to the fans who probably as well. I'm new to the band. This is kind of, as I wouldn't say this album itself is a cherry picking experience, as I did wind up eventually going into preparing for this album, listening to the last album that everyone goes gaga for, and I get why. I understand some people have a mixed bag about it, but my issue isn't even with the music choices itself. No, I like them very much. Granted, a lot of people are hyping this record up to be possibly taking Colors 2's spot, which is what kind of had me even more curious about this record. And some of the sonic choices I do hear that Metal Meltdown got me hyped up for, especially the talks of Porcupine Tree, Opeth, and some extent of Colors era BT Bam, which is how I got into BT Bam, by the way. But I wouldn't even go as far as to say that's it's even. They don't go as goofy as them, though. They're way more seriously toned, I would say. And if anything, BT Bam oriented, I'd say this is more in line with the Parallax series. Minus the more Tim Burton-y stuff, weirdy stuff. Minus anything avant-garde, I'd say, about BT Bam. Of that experimental nature. And way more that more progressive side. In a more Colorsy-ish kind of way. That one was a bit, luckily the stuff that they do, and I do like, and I love some of the guitar tones as well on this record. The thing is, there are moments of the instrumentation on the nets, even where the guitars do pop out more, even in the softer moments, but it seems, unless they're going, whoever produced this has the same mindset that it seems people back in the 70s did with the heavier bands, to where they aren't able to have the softer portions of their music very forward into the mix, and it seems their style of production seems to be more favorable, or the way it's mixed to be or at least understood how to use compression to balance out the certain portions of your mix, because Planet Caravan is barely much anything, and we had to wait till Pantera came up with it because they had better production going on. That's the issue I seem to have with this record. It's not like mixed horribly or anything. Because I've dealt with bad mixes. I mean, anyone who's seen my 2019 list when it came to the Baroness Golden Grey, the fact that I said screw it with Golden Grey because the material that's in it is good. It's just, despite its mix. But, just enough having listened to it despite its mix. And production issues. This one, but it's just more the fact that there's just a slight lack of compression between those quieter and those louder moments, to where I gotta mess with volume to where I realize I gotta mess with volume just to hear the elements that are the more dynamically known elements that they're going for. Hell, even I think the track of Dreaming Black Clockwork is very Ziltoid, strapping young lad, Ziltoid, and DTP Deconstruction era Devin Townsend, in terms of some of the more extreme guitar works styles of heaviness. Clean is pretty good for what it is. I like Wait a lot, actually. Moments of those times like Wait and Maybe One Day really hit hard for me. I also kind of like The Void, with which no sound escapes. More is definitely something interesting. Sure. But I will say overall, I don't find myself coming back to this, I would say, as much as Colors 2. But I can or yet alone even the possibility, even from the first listen I could tell, even though I liked what I heard, it's just not as strong of a release. I probably like it more than those that might have actually tried to bitch about this record, because overall, I will say it. Thumbs up. This thing, despite its mixed thing rocks, which that issue is just enough that it keeps me from giving it the masterclass level that I managed to give Colors to. So, but it will make my best. It'll make my year-end list. I don't know if just where it will go. I don't know yet. But I like it. But what did you guys think of the new Rivers of Nile, the work? I don't know if you agree with some of my takes on this. And plus, I also would like to say I'm sort of Allegion's proponent of sentience still kind of spoils me a little bit when it comes to the perfect idea of blending the progressive and tech death elements, yet alone even melodic death metal, by the way, which is more in my speed. That kind of a thing kind of might have spoiled me a little bit too, about some of my thoughts on what I think of progressive death metal in general, besides just BT Bam and Opeth and whatnot. But yeah, despite that, I'd still like what Rivers of Nile are putting down. I kind of look forward to what they're going to explore, some of the newer sounds they were going for. I do wish they'd also, I do feel like they kind of put it set a little weirdly in the mix to where there is some more, they haven't lost the ability to use the saxophone, bringing in the saxophones. There is moments, but it's not as, honestly, as forward present in the mix, like I said before about it. But it's not as utilized either, I would say, necessarily. Or at least not noticeably, which is what again, the mixed compression issue. But what did you guys think overall? Leave a comment below, let me know. Rock that like button with thrust if you must on this video. Also, do the same when you click on the link in the description to my Facebook page for that like button there, but also follow me as well on there. Also, hit that subscribe button, click the notification bell, and make sure you get all my notifications. And as always, guys, keep it. This is Rocky Moves Tire. I've been Tyler. Keep it random, keep it real, and keep it rocking. And I'll see you in the next video. Take care, y'all.